Rachel Martinez had dreamed of flying since she was 7 years old, watching military helicopters practice maneuvers over her family's ranch in Texas. 23 years later, she stood in the hangar at Fort Carson, Colorado, staring at the Black Hawk helicopter that would either make or break her career. The storm clouds gathering outside matched the tension in her chest as she prepared for what everyone said was impossible. Her commanding officer, Colonel James Peterson, had made his position crystal clear during their morning briefing. Martinez, you're not ready for solo storm operations. The weather conditions are deteriorating rapidly, and we need experienced pilots handling this mission. His dismissive tone carried the weight of months of similar conversations, each one chipping away at Rachel's confidence while reinforcing the invisible barriers she faced as one of the few female pilots in her unit. The emergency call had come in at 800 hours. A medical evacuation was urgently needed from a remote mountain location where a civilian climbing team had encountered a serious accident. One climber had suffered severe internal injuries after a fall, and ground transportation was impossible due to washed-out roads from the ongoing storm system. The weather window was closing rapidly, and every minute counted in saving the injured person's life. Rachel had immediately volunteered for the mission, her hand shooting up before Colonel Peterson had finished explaining the situation. She knew the mountain terrain better than most pilots in the unit, having grown up exploring similar landscapes during her childhood in Texas. Her flight record was impeccable, with over 1,200 hours of helicopter experience and specialized training in adverse weather conditions. Yet Peterson's response was predictably negative. "We'll send Captain Williams," Peterson announced, referring to a male pilot with significantly less experience but apparently more credibility in the colonel's eyes. "He's handled storm operations before." The fact that Rachel had successfully completed similar missions seemed irrelevant to Peterson's decision-making process. The hangar buzzed with activity as the maintenance crew prepared Williams' aircraft for departure. Rachel watched from the sidelines, her frustration building with each passing minute. She knew she was the better choice for this mission, but the institutional bias she'd fought against throughout her military career was once again blocking her path. The injured climber's life hung in the balance, while bureaucratic prejudice took precedence over practical skill assessment. As if summoned by her thoughts, Captain Williams approached with a grim expression. "Martinez, I need to talk to you," he said, glancing around nervously. "I've been reviewing the weather reports and the terrain maps. This mission is beyond my current capabilities, especially with these storm conditions. The mountain updrafts combined with the wind shear patterns are going to require someone with your level of precision flying experience." Rachel felt a surge of vindication mixed with concern. Williams was essentially admitting that Peterson's decision was putting lives at risk. The irony wasn't lost on her that the experienced pilot was now acknowledging her superior skills in exactly the situation where she'd been deemed inadequate. The storm outside was intensifying, and time was running out for the injured climber waiting for rescue. Williams continued his confession with obvious discomfort. "I've never flown in conditions quite like these, and I know you've trained extensively in mountain storm operations. The last thing I want is to crash and make the situation worse for everyone involved." His admission confirmed what Rachel had suspected all along. Peterson's gender bias was overriding sound military judgment about pilot capabilities. The weight of the situation pressed down on Rachel's shoulders. A life hung in the balance, and she possessed the skills necessary to save it. Yet military protocol and prejudice stood in her way. She'd spent years proving herself in a male-dominated field, accumulating qualifications and experience that should have made her the obvious choice for challenging missions like this one. "Williams, you need to tell Peterson that you're not comfortable with this mission," Rachel urged, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "A person's life is more important than anyone's pride or preconceived notions about who should be flying these aircraft." She gestured toward the storm-lashed windows of the hangar, where rain was beginning to strike the glass with increasing intensity. Before Williams could respond, Peterson's voice boomed across the hangar. "What's the delay? We should have been airborne 10 minutes ago." His impatience was palpable as he strode toward them, clipboard in hand and frustration etched across his weathered face. The pressure of the medical emergency was clearly affecting his normally composed demeanor. Williams straightened his shoulders, seemingly gathering courage for what needed to be said. "Sir, I need to discuss the mission parameters with you. The weather conditions are more severe than initially reported, and I believe we need to reassess our pilot selection for this operation." His diplomatic approach was an attempt to save face while addressing the critical safety concerns. Peterson's expression darkened immediately. "Captain Williams, are you questioning my judgment? I've made my decision based on experience and operational requirements. Martinez is not qualified for this level of storm flying, regardless of her training records." His stubborn refusal to acknowledge Rachel's capabilities was becoming a dangerous liability. The radio crackled with an urgent update from the climbing team. "Base, this is Mountain Rescue 7. Patient's condition is deteriorating rapidly. We need immediate evacuation, or we're going to lose him." The desperation in the rescue coordinator's voice cut through the tension in the hangar like a blade. Rachel stepped forward, her patience finally exhausted. "Colonel Peterson, with all due respect, I am the most qualified pilot for this mission. My training records speak for themselves, and Captain Williams has expressed concerns about his ability to handle these specific conditions. We're wasting precious time while someone's life hangs in the balance." Peterson's face flushed with anger. "Lieutenant Martinez, you are out of line. My decision is final, and you will not question my authority again. Captain Williams will complete this mission as ordered." His authoritarian response demonstrated the toxic leadership style that had plagued Rachel's career advancement for months. The injured climber was running out of time, and Rachel knew that military protocol was about to cost someone their life. She looked at Williams, who appeared increasingly uncomfortable with the weight of responsibility being placed on his shoulders. The storm outside continued to intensify, making the rescue mission more dangerous with each passing moment. Rachel's mind raced through her options as the urgency of the situation escalated. The injured climber's life was slipping away, while institutional prejudice prevented the most qualified pilot from attempting the rescue. She had trained for exactly this type of mission, spending countless hours in flight simulators and actual aircraft practicing emergency procedures in adverse weather conditions. The maintenance chief, Sergeant Rodriguez, approached Peterson with a concerned expression. "Colonel, I've been monitoring the weather patterns, and we're looking at a very narrow window for this operation. The storm system is moving faster than predicted, and visibility is dropping rapidly." His technical expertise carried weight that even Peterson couldn't easily dismiss. Peterson studied the weather reports with growing concern. The mission was becoming increasingly dangerous, and the responsibility for any failures would ultimately fall on his shoulders. He glanced between Williams and Rachel, clearly struggling with a decision that could have life-or-death consequences for multiple people. "Sir," Rachel interjected carefully, "I've flown in similar conditions during my training at Fort Rucker. The mountain rescue scenarios we practiced were specifically designed for situations like this. Every minute we delay reduces the chances of a successful evacuation." She kept her voice respectful but firm, hopping to appeal to Peterson's sense of duty rather than his ego. Williams finally found his voice. "Colonel, I need to be honest with you. Lieutenant Martinez has more experience with this type of flying than I do. I'm concerned that my limitations could compromise the mission and endanger everyone involved." His admission was a courageous act that could potentially damage his own career prospects. The radio crackled again with increasing desperation. "Base, patient is losing consciousness. We need immediate evacuation or we're going to lose him in the next 30 minutes. The climbing team's medical officer sounded strained, clearly fighting against time and deteriorating conditions to keep the injured person alive. Peterson looked out at the storm-lashed airfield, watching other aircraft being secured against the worsening weather. The decision he made in the next few minutes would determine whether they saved a life or returned with tragic news for the climber's family. His personal biases were colliding with operational reality, in a way that couldn't be ignored. "Martinez," Peterson said slowly, his voice carrying the weight of reluctant acceptance. "Your training records do show extensive storm weather experience. But if you take this mission and anything goes wrong, the responsibility will be entirely on your shoulders." His conditional approval came with implied threats that revealed his continued skepticism about her abilities. Rachel felt a surge of determination mixed with relief. Finally, she would have the opportunity to prove herself in the most critical circumstances possible. "Understood, sir. I accept full responsibility for the mission outcome." Her confidence was genuine, backed by years of training and preparation for exactly this type of challenge. The maintenance crew immediately began preparing Rachel's aircraft while she gathered her flight gear. The storm outside seemed to be reaching peak intensity, with wind gusts that would test even the most skilled pilot's abilities. She reviewed the terrain maps one final time, mentally plotting the safest approach to the mountain rescue site. As she walked toward her helicopter, Rachel couldn't help but think about all the obstacles she'd overcome to reach this moment. The doubts, the discrimination, the constant need to prove herself. It had all led to this critical test of her abilities under the most challenging conditions imaginable. Rachel's pre-flight inspection was thorough and methodical, each check performed with the precision that had earned her top marks in flight school. The Black Hawk helicopter hummed with mechanical readiness, its rotors cutting through the storm-laden air as she completed her final preparations. The weight of responsibility sat heavily on her shoulders, but it was a burden she'd trained her entire career to carry. The weather briefing painted a grim picture. Wind speeds were gusting up to 60 miles per hour, with visibility dropping to near-zero conditions in some areas. The mountain terrain would create dangerous updrafts and downdrafts that could slam an aircraft into the ground without warning. These were exactly the conditions that had made Peterson hesitant to approve the mission in the first place. "Martinez, are you absolutely certain about this?" Peterson's voice came through her headset as she completed her final systems check. His question carried more than professional concern. It was a last-ditch attempt to shift responsibility away from his controversial decision. "The weather conditions are deteriorating faster than predicted." Rachel's response was calm and confident. "Sir, I'm ready for this mission. The aircraft is performing perfectly, and I've reviewed all the terrain obstacles between here and the rescue site. We have a narrow window of opportunity, and I intend to use it effectively." Her professional demeanor masked the intense pressure she felt to succeed under these scrutinized conditions. The control tower cleared her for departure with obvious reluctance. "Black Hawk 77, you are cleared for takeoff. Be advised that you are the only aircraft attempting flight operations in current conditions. Weather is reporting severe turbulence and wind shear throughout your flight path. The air traffic controller's warnings were standard procedure, but they carried extra weight given the circumstances. As Rachel lifted off from the airfield, the full force of the storm immediately challenged her flying skills. The helicopter bucked and rolled against the wind currents, requiring constant adjustments to maintain stable flight. The rain struck her windscreen with such intensity that visibility was reduced to mere yards ahead, forcing her to rely heavily on instrument navigation. Peterson's voice crackled through the radio with updates from the rescue site. Martinez, the climbing team, reports that patient vital signs are weakening. Medical officer estimates you have approximately 20 minutes before the situation becomes critical. The time pressure added another layer of stress to an already dangerous mission. Rachel pushed the helicopter through the storm toward the mountain rescue site, her hands steady on the controls despite the aircraft's constant movement. She'd trained for these conditions countless times, but the real-world application was testing every skill she'd developed. The mountain terrain was beginning to appear through the storm clouds, jagged peaks that could prove fatal to any pilot who miscalculated their approach. The rescue site came into view as a small clearing surrounded by steep rock faces and dense forest. The climbing team had marked the landing zone with emergency flares, but the wind was scattering the smoke and making visual references difficult. Rachel would need to execute a precision landing in conditions that challenged even the most experienced pilots. Base, this is Black Hawk 77. I have visual on the rescue site, beginning my approach now. Rachel's voice remained steady as she maneuvered the helicopter toward the improvised landing zone. The wind currents around the mountain peaks were creating dangerous turbulence that threatened to slam her aircraft into the surrounding rocks. The descent required every ounce of her flying skill. Mountain winds created sudden updrafts and downdrafts that could flip an aircraft or drive it into the ground without warning. Rachel compensated for each wind shift with precise control inputs, her years of training guiding her through the treacherous approach. The landing zone was smaller than Rachel had hoped, barely large enough for the helicopter's rotor disc with dangerous rock formations on all sides. She hovered above the site, studying the wind patterns and calculating the safest approach angle. The climbing team waited anxiously below, their injured companion lying on an improvised stretcher as medical supplies scattered in the gusting wind. Black Hawk 77, be advised that wind speeds are increasing rapidly. We're measuring gusts up to 70 miles per hour at your location. The weather update from base added urgency to an already critical situation. Rachel knew she had only minutes to complete the rescue before conditions became impossible even for her skilled flying. With practiced precision, she began her descent toward the landing zone. The helicopter responded to her every command as she compensated for the chaotic wind patterns. Her years of mountain flying experience proved invaluable as she read the subtle signs of air currents and adjusted her approach accordingly. The aircraft touched down with barely a bump, rotors still spinning at full power to maintain stability. The rescue team immediately sprang into action. Medical personnel ran toward the helicopter carrying the injured climber on a stretcher, their movements coordinated despite the difficult conditions. Rachel maintained precise control of the aircraft, knowing that any mistake could result in disaster for everyone involved in the rescue operation. Patient is secure. We're ready for immediate departure, the medical officer reported through the intercom. The injured climber was unconscious but stable, his life now dependent on Rachel's ability to navigate back through the storm to the medical facility. The return flight would be equally challenging, with the added complication of a critically injured passenger. Rachel lifted off from the mountain rescue site with smooth precision, the helicopter climbing steadily despite the turbulent conditions. The storm seemed to be reaching its peak intensity, with lightning flashing around the mountain peaks and wind gusts that tested the aircraft's structural limits. Her instrument panel glowed with warning lights as various systems strained against the adverse conditions. The flight back to base required constant vigilance and skilled piloting. Rachel's hands moved continuously on the controls, making minute adjustments to keep the helicopter stable in the chaotic air currents. The medical team worked frantically to stabilize their patient, while she concentrated on providing the smoothest possible flight path under impossible circumstances. Martinez, this is base. How are you handling the conditions out there? Peterson's voice carried genuine concern, perhaps finally recognizing the extraordinary skill required for this type of mission. His earlier dismissiveness had been replaced by professional respect for what Rachel was accomplishing in the storm. Sir, aircraft is performing well within parameters. Patient appears stable, and we're maintaining course for base despite significant turbulence. Rachel's calm professionalism masked the intense concentration required to keep everyone alive during the challenging flight. Every control input was calculated and precise, the result of years of training and natural flying ability. The lights of the base appeared through the storm clouds like a beacon of hope. Rachel began her approach to the landing pad where medical personnel waited with an ambulance. The injured climber would soon receive the advanced medical care that could save his life, but only if she could complete this final approach successfully. As the helicopter settled onto the landing pad, Rachel felt a surge of quiet satisfaction. She had accomplished what everyone said was impossible, saving a life while proving her capabilities under the most challenging conditions imaginable. The storm continued to rage around them, but inside the aircraft, A successful rescue mission was reaching its conclusion. The medical team immediately transferred the injured climber to the waiting ambulance, their movements swift and professional as they continued life-saving treatments. Rachel watched through her cockpit window as the stretcher disappeared into the vehicle, knowing that her flying skills had given this person a fighting chance at survival. The storm showed no signs of abating, but the critical rescue mission had been completed successfully. Colonel Peterson approached the aircraft as Rachel began her post-flight shutdown procedures. His expression was difficult to read, but she could sense a fundamental shift in his attitude toward her capabilities. The successful completion of a mission that he had deemed too dangerous for her to attempt had forced him to reconsider his previous assessments. "Martinez, I need to speak with you in my office once you've completed your post-flight inspection," Peterson said through the intercom. His tone was formal but lacked the dismissive edge that had characterized their previous interactions. The implied criticism and doubt had been replaced by what seemed like grudging respect. Rachel's thorough post-flight inspection revealed that the helicopter had performed admirably under extreme conditions. Despite the severe turbulence and challenging weather, all systems had functioned within normal parameters. Her skilled piloting had protected both the aircraft and its passengers from the worst effects of the storm conditions. Word of the successful rescue mission spread quickly through the base. Fellow pilots and maintenance crew members approached Rachel with congratulations and expressions of respect. Many had witnessed the conditions she'd flown through, and they understood the extraordinary skill required to complete such a dangerous mission successfully. In Peterson's office, the colonel seemed uncomfortable as he struggled to find appropriate words. "Martinez, I owe you an apology. Your performance today was exceptional under conditions that would have challenged any pilot in this unit. I let my preconceptions cloud my judgment about your capabilities." His admission was clearly difficult but necessary. Rachel accepted the apology with professional grace, though internally she felt vindicated after months of fighting against institutional bias. "Thank you, sir. I hope this demonstrates that pilot qualification should be based on skill and experience rather than other factors." Her response was diplomatic, but carried an unmistakable message about future mission assignments. The injured climber survived his ordeal, making a full recovery after several days in intensive care. His family sent a heartfelt letter of thanks to the entire rescue team, specifically mentioning Rachel's brave piloting under dangerous conditions. The letter was posted on the unit bulletin board, serving as a visible reminder of what had been accomplished. Peterson's attitude toward Rachel underwent a permanent transformation. She began receiving assignments to the most challenging and important missions, her skills finally being recognized and utilized appropriately. Other female pilots in the unit noticed the change and felt encouraged about their own career prospects. The storm that had seemed like such an obstacle became the catalyst for Rachel's professional breakthrough. Her willingness to accept the dangerous mission and her skilled execution under pressure had shattered the barriers that had previously limited her opportunities. The doubters had been silenced by her undeniable competence. Rachel's success story spread beyond her immediate unit, inspiring other female military pilots who faced similar challenges. Her example demonstrated that skill and determination could overcome institutional prejudice, but only through concrete demonstration of superior capabilities under pressure. The rescue mission had become a turning point not just for her career, but for perceptions about women in combat aviation roles. 6 months after the storm rescue, Rachel received notification of her promotion to captain, along with assignment to the elite mountain rescue squadron. The position was one of the most coveted in military aviation, typically reserved for pilots with exceptional skills and proven track records in emergency operations. Her successful mission had opened doors that had previously seemed impossible to breach. The promotion ceremony was attended by the climber she had rescued, who had made a complete recovery and returned to his passion for mountain exploration. He spoke emotionally about the debt he owed to Rachel's courage and skill, emphasizing that her decision to fly in impossible conditions had literally saved his life. His words carried particular weight given his first-hand experience of the rescue. Colonel Peterson, now genuinely supportive of Rachel's career advancement, presented her with the Distinguished Flying Cross for her heroic actions during the storm rescue. In his remarks, he acknowledged his previous mistakes in judgment and praised her exceptional piloting abilities. The transformation in his attitude served as a lesson about the dangers of prejudice in military leadership. Rachel's new squadron was composed entirely of volunteers who had proven themselves in the most challenging flying conditions. She found herself among pilots who respected skill above all other considerations, creating a professional environment where her abilities were valued appropriately. The camaraderie and mutual respect were a refreshing change from her previous assignment. The squadron's missions took Rachel to remote locations around the world, where her mountain flying expertise proved invaluable in saving lives under extreme conditions. Each successful operation built her reputation as one of the military's most skilled helicopter pilots, capable of accomplishing missions that others considered impossible. Young female pilots began seeking Rachel out for mentorship and career advice. She emphasized the importance of excellence in training and preparation, while also acknowledging the additional challenges they might face due to institutional biases. Her message was clear. Skill and determination could overcome obstacles, but the standards had to be consistently higher. Rachel's story became a case study in military leadership schools about the dangers of allowing personal bias to override objective assessment of capabilities. Her example demonstrated how prejudice could literally cost lives by preventing the most qualified personnel from performing critical missions. The lessons learned from her experience influenced policy changes in pilot assignment procedures. The storm that had once seemed like an insurmountable obstacle had become the defining moment of Rachel's career. Her willingness to accept the challenge when others doubted her abilities had proven that courage and skill could overcome any barrier. The rescue mission had transformed her from an underestimated pilot into a respected leader in military aviation. Years later, Rachel would look back on that stormy day as the moment when everything changed. The injured climber's life had been saved, her own career had been transformed, and barriers had been broken for other women in military aviation. Sometimes the most difficult challenges created the greatest opportunities for growth and change. The Black Hawk helicopter that had carried her through the storm was eventually retired and placed in a museum, with a plaque commemorating the rescue mission that had challenged assumptions about women in combat aviation. Rachel's story continued to inspire new generations of military pilots who faced their own storms of doubt and prejudice. Rachel's assignment to the Mountain Rescue Squadron brought new challenges and opportunities that tested her skills in ways she had never imagined. The unit's missions took her to the most remote and dangerous locations on Earth, where precision flying meant the difference between life and death for stranded personnel. Each operation built upon her growing reputation as an exceptional pilot. The squadron's commander, Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Anderson, had specifically requested Rachel's transfer based on her demonstrated abilities during the storm rescue. Anderson was known throughout the military for her no-nonsense approach to personnel selection, choosing pilots based solely on their capabilities rather than any other considerations. Her support provided Rachel with the professional environment she had long sought. Rachel's first major mission with the new squadron involved rescuing a team of scientists stranded on a remote glacier in Alaska. The operation required precision flying at high altitude in sub-zero temperatures, with visibility limited by blowing snow and ice. Her successful completion of the mission under extreme conditions further cemented her reputation within the aviation community. The rescue operations took Rachel to disaster zones around the world, where her skills were tested in every conceivable type of emergency situation. Earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, and avalanches all presented unique challenges that required different flying techniques and decision-making processes. Her adaptability and quick thinking saved countless lives during these critical operations. Fellow pilots in the squadron quickly recognized Rachel's exceptional abilities and sought her expertise for their own professional development. She became an informal instructor, sharing techniques and insights that helped improve the unit's overall effectiveness. Her willingness to mentor others demonstrated the leadership qualities that would define her later career. The media attention surrounding Rachel's heroic actions during various rescue missions brought unwanted scrutiny, but also important recognition for the challenges faced by women in military aviation. She handled interviews with the same professionalism she brought to flying, emphasizing the importance of merit-based selection for critical positions. Rachel's parents, who had watched her struggle against institutional barriers throughout her military career, were finally able to see their daughter receive the recognition she deserved. The ranch where she had first dreamed of flying became a symbol of determination and perseverance in the face of seemingly impossible obstacles. The climbing community, whose member Rachel had saved during the storm rescue, honored her with their highest award for courage and service. The presentation ceremony included testimony from dozens of people whose lives had been saved by her exceptional flying skills in emergency situations. Their gratitude provided personal validation for all the professional challenges she had overcome. Rachel's influence extended beyond her immediate squadron, as military aviation policies began changing to ensure that the most qualified pilots received appropriate assignments, regardless of gender or other irrelevant factors. Her example had forced institutional recognition that bias and prejudice could have life-or-death consequences in critical situations. The storm that had once threatened to end Rachel's career aspirations had instead become the catalyst for transformative change throughout military aviation. Her courage in accepting the dangerous mission and her skilled execution under pressure had shattered barriers that had limited opportunities for countless other qualified pilots. As Rachel continued her career in the Mountain Rescue Squadron, she reflected on how the doubters and obstacles had ultimately strengthened her resolve and improved her abilities. The challenges that had seemed so insurmountable had become the foundation for unprecedented success and recognition in military aviation. Rachel's reputation as an exceptional pilot continued to grow as she completed increasingly challenging rescue missions around the globe. Her expertise in mountain flying and adverse whether operations made her the go-to pilot for the most dangerous assignments, where failure meant not just mission failure, but loss of life for the people counting on rescue. The Pentagon took notice of Rachel's exceptional record and offered her a position as an instructor at the Army's premier flight training facility. The assignment would allow her to shape the next generation of military pilots while continuing to break barriers for women in aviation. Her acceptance of the position represented another milestone in her remarkable career transformation. As an instructor, Rachel emphasized the importance of technical proficiency and decision-making skills under pressure. Her students learned not just how to fly helicopters, but how to think critically about risk assessment and mission planning. The lessons she taught were informed by real-world experience in the most challenging conditions possible. Rachel's story continued to inspire change throughout the military aviation community. Policies were updated to ensure that pilot assignments were based on objective criteria rather than subjective biases. Her example had demonstrated the critical importance of merit-based selection for positions where lives depended on exceptional performance. The injured climber she had rescued during the storm became a lifelong friend and advocate for her work. He established a foundation that provided scholarships for women pursuing careers in aviation, nomming Rachel as the organization's first honorary chairwoman. The foundation's work helped ensure that future generations would face fewer barriers to pursuing their dreams. Rachel's parents were able to witness their daughter's continued success and recognition within the aviation community. The little girl who had watched helicopters over the Texas ranch had become one of the military's most respected pilots, proving that determination and skill could overcome any obstacle. The Black Hawk helicopter that had carried Rachel through the storm was eventually donated to the Smithsonian Institution, where it stands as a testament to courage and skill under pressure. The exhibit includes Rachel's story and serves as inspiration for visitors who face their own challenges in pursuing their dreams. Years later, Rachel would look back on that stormy day as the moment when everything changed. The decision to accept a dangerous mission that others deemed impossible had transformed her career and helped change an entire institution. Her courage had saved lives and opened doors for countless others who followed in her path. The storm that had once seemed like an insurmountable obstacle had become the defining moment of Rachel's career. Her willingness to prove herself under the most challenging conditions had shattered barriers and demonstrated that excellence knows no gender. The rescue mission had become a symbol of what was possible when skill and determination met opportunity. Rachel's legacy extended far beyond her individual achievements to encompass the systemic changes she had helped bring about in military aviation. Her example continued to inspire new generations of pilots who faced their own storms of doubt and prejudice, proving that courage and competence could overcome any barrier. The girl who had dreamed of flying while watching helicopters over her family's ranch had become a symbol of perseverance and excellence in aviation. Her story demonstrated that the most difficult challenges often created the greatest opportunities for growth, change, and achievement. Rachel's final mission with the Mountain Rescue Squadron took her back to the storm-battered peaks where her career had been transformed years earlier. A group of researchers had become stranded during a sudden weather emergency, and the conditions were eerily similar to those she had faced during her breakthrough rescue operation. As she approached the familiar terrain, Rachel reflected on how much had changed since that first storm rescue. She was now a respected leader in military aviation, with a record of successful missions that had saved hundreds of lives. The doubters had been silenced by her consistent excellence under pressure. The rescue operation proceeded flawlessly, with Rachel's years of experience allowing her to navigate the treacherous conditions with confidence and skill. Her crew watched in admiration as she executed a perfect landing in weather that would have challenged any pilot. The researchers were successfully evacuated without incident. Upon returning to base, Rachel received word that she had been selected for promotion to major and assignment to the Pentagon, where she would help develop new training protocols for military pilots. The position would allow her to influence policy at the highest levels and ensure that future generations of aviators would be selected based on merit rather than bias. The promotion ceremony was attended by Colonel Peterson, who had traveled specifically to congratulate Rachel on her continued success. Their relationship had evolved from one of skepticism and bias to mutual respect and professional admiration. His presence at the ceremony symbolized the transformation that had occurred throughout the aviation community. Rachel's acceptance speech focused on the importance of perseverance and excellence in overcoming obstacles. She emphasized that her success had been built on the foundation of thorough preparation, continuous learning, and the courage to accept challenges that others deemed impossible. Her message resonated with young pilots who faced their own barriers to advancement. The injured climber she had rescued during the storm was also present at the ceremony, now serving as a volunteer with mountain rescue organizations. His recovery and return to climbing had been complete, and he credited Rachel's skilled flying with giving him a second chance at life. Their friendship had become a lasting testament to the impact of her heroic actions. Rachel's parents beamed with pride as they watched their daughter receive recognition for her exceptional career achievements. The little girl who had watched helicopters over the Texas ranch had exceeded even their highest expectations, becoming a symbol of excellence and determination in military aviation. As Rachel prepared for her new assignment at the Pentagon, she looked forward to the opportunity to shape policy and training programs that would benefit future generations of military pilots. Her experience had taught her that institutional change was possible when individuals had the courage to challenge assumptions and prove their capabilities through exceptional performance. The storm that had once threatened to derail Rachel's career had instead become the catalyst for unprecedented success and recognition. Her willingness to accept the dangerous mission when others doubted her abilities had transformed not just her own career, but the entire military aviation community's approach to pilot selection and assignment. Rachel's story continued to inspire others who faced their own storms of doubt and prejudice. Her example demonstrated that excellence and determination could overcome any barrier, and that the most challenging obstacles often created the greatest opportunities for growth and achievement. The rescue mission had become a symbol of what was possible when courage met opportunity. The girl who had dreamed of flying had become a leader whose influence extended far beyond her individual achievements, creating lasting change that would benefit countless others who followed in her path. Rachel's transition to the Pentagon marked the beginning of a new chapter in her remarkable career. Her office overlooked the same airfield where she had once been told she wasn't qualified to fly in storm conditions, a daily reminder of how far she had come through determination and exceptional performance. The view served as inspiration for the policy changes she would help implement. Her first major project involved developing new assessment criteria for pilot selection that emphasized objective performance metrics over subjective evaluations. The changes were designed to prevent the kind of bias that had nearly cost a life during her breakthrough rescue mission. Rachel's real-world experience provided credibility that made her recommendations difficult to dismiss. The climbing community continued to honor Rachel's heroic actions through annual awards, recognizing courage and service in rescue operations. The ceremony each year featured testimonials from people whose lives had been saved by her exceptional flying skills, serving as a powerful reminder of the importance of merit-based selection for critical positions. Rachel's influence extended to military academies, where she became a frequent guest speaker on topics related to leadership and overcoming adversity. Her presentations emphasized the importance of preparation, continuous learning, and the courage to challenge assumptions when lives were at stake. Students found her message particularly inspiring because it was grounded in real-world experience. The foundation established by the climber she had rescued continued to provide scholarships for women pursuing careers in aviation. Rachel's involvement as honorary chairwoman helped ensure that future generations would face fewer barriers to pursuing their dreams. The organization's work was creating lasting change that extended far beyond individual achievements. Rachel's parents had the opportunity to see their daughter's continued success and recognition within the aviation community. The ranch where she had first dreamed of flying became a symbol of determination and perseverance, visited by young people seeking inspiration for their own challenging journeys. The family's story demonstrated the power of supporting dreams, even when they seemed impossible. The Black Hawk helicopter that had carried Rachel through the storm was eventually moved to the National Museum of the United States Air Force, where it stands as a testament to courage and skill under pressure. The exhibit includes Rachel's complete story and serves as inspiration for visitors who face their own challenges in pursuing their dreams. Years later, Rachel would often return to the mountain peaks where her career had been transformed. The terrain that had once seemed so threatening now represented the power of perseverance and the importance of accepting challenges that others deemed impossible. The storm-battered peaks had become a symbol of triumph over adversity. The institutional changes that Rachel helped implement at the Pentagon ensured that pilot assignments would be based on objective criteria rather than subjective biases. Her example had demonstrated the critical importance of merit-based selection for positions where lives depended on exceptional performance. The policies she influenced would benefit countless future aviators. Rachel's legacy extended far beyond her individual achievements to encompass the systemic changes she had helped bring about in military aviation. Her story continued to inspire new generations of pilots who faced their own storms of doubt and prejudice, proving that courage and competence could overcome any barrier. The girl who had dreamed of flying while watching helicopters over her family's ranch had become a transformative figure whose influence would be felt for generations. Her courage in accepting that dangerous storm rescue mission had not only saved a life, but had changed an entire institution's approach to recognizing and utilizing exceptional talent. Rachel's retirement ceremony 25 years later was attended by hundreds of pilots whose careers had been influenced by her groundbreaking example. The hangar where she had once been told she wasn't qualified to fly in storm conditions was now named in her honor, a fitting tribute to her transformation of military aviation's approach to pilot selection and assignment. The injured climber she had rescued during the storm, now in his 70s, delivered the keynote address at the ceremony. His voice carried the weight of decades of gratitude as he described how Rachel's courage and skill had given him a lifetime of additional experiences with his family and continued mountain exploration. The debt he owed to her exceptional flying abilities could never be fully repaid. Colonel Peterson, now retired himself, was among the distinguished guests who had come to honor Rachel's remarkable career. His presence at the ceremony represented the complete transformation of his attitude toward her capabilities, from skepticism and bias to genuine respect and admiration. Their relationship had evolved to symbolize the institutional change that had occurred throughout the aviation community. Rachel's parents, though elderly, were able to witness their daughter's final recognition for her exceptional career achievements. The little girl who had watched helicopters over the Texas ranch had exceeded even their highest expectations, becoming a legend whose influence would be felt for generations. Their unwavering support had been instrumental in her success. The ceremony featured presentations from dozens of people whose lives had been saved by Rachel's.